So you, like me, are probably going to be just as surprised to find out what Lord Voldemort was doing before he became He Who Shall Not Be Named. Turns out he wasn't such a bad guy after all. The Kingsman is brought to us by director Matthew Vaughn and stars Rafe Fiennes, Gemma Arterton, Jimon Hansu, and Harris Dickinson. In the early years of the 20th century, the Kingsman Agency is formed to stand against a cabal that is plotting a war to wipe out millions. So this marks the third entry in the Kingsman franchise, which I might add is based on a comic book series. So I'm kind of getting way ahead on my comic book movie review series here. This time around, instead of taking place in present day, this is a prequel showing the formation of the Kingsman, and it takes place in the early 20th century. So I'm a big fan of Matthew Vaughn's Kingsman and Kingsman: The Golden Circle. So going into this movie, I was really excited because everybody behind the camera, including Vaughn himself, was back to make this film. I was also a bit hesitant because this was all new characters, totally new time period, and I knew it would be very different. The movie did a pretty good job early on of quelling those hesitations though. This movie has that same energy that those movies had. You know, those crazy tracking shots that like ramp up and slow down and are just like all over the place in the first movies that we all know and love. They're here as well. This movie's a little bit less James Bond-esque spy adventure and more kind of war-era covert operations adventure. There's also a lot more family drama in this one. A big portion of this film revolves around this father and son, and the father just wanting what's best for his son, to keep him safe, but the son just wanting to not be smothered so much and get out into the world and experience it, and also just fight for his country. He wants to do the right thing. That's a really big dynamic in this movie, and we do get a really good payoff to that. Now when it comes to comparing this film to the other films in the series, which just can't be helped, it is the same series after all, this is a really fresh look at this world that we've already gotten to know. This one does pump the brakes a bit and take a bit of a slower approach to things than the original two films did. While that sounds like it wouldn't be a good thing, I kinda liked it. Nothing against the original film's lightning fast pace. I like those films. I like the pace of those films. I like the way that they went about their storytelling. This is just telling a different story in a different way, but in the same world, and both of them work. This is a much more thoughtful approach. We get a lot more character drama in this film than we did the previous two. I thought this was a good thing too, because we don't know these characters, so the movie really went out of its way to allow us time to get to know them and form some type of bond with them, and you really do. Ralph Fiennes' Lord Oxford is a very layered, interesting character, and his butler, played by Jimon Hansu, is the coolest butler since Alfred Pennyworth. Gemma Arterton's nanny, Polly, which is kind of weird that she's even employed anymore because Conrad's like 18 years old at this point, but whatever. She was great too. I kept expecting her to become some type of love interest, but that's not how she rolled. She would never do that. She would never disrespect the lady of the house, even though the lady of the house has been gone for some years. And when this little ragtag crew gets together and goes on their missions, it is pretty fucking awesome. Each of them had their own interesting personalities, and I really felt like we had a chance to get to know all of them throughout the runtime of the film. Harris Dickinson's Conrad at first seems like he's probably the most one-dimensional character out of everybody, but as the film progresses, we actually do get to know more and more about his character. Especially later in the film, you really get to know a lot more about what's going on in this kid's head. Now, there's a host of other characters, and they're all fairly interesting, but none stand up to the main cast, with the exception of Reyes Ifan's Rasputin. This is definitely one of the coolest and most colorful characters we've gotten up to this point in the series. He's not the main bad, but he is the bad guy we spend the most amount of time with. And pretty much any scene that he was on screen was a joy to watch. This character is just insane, and it was just great. The fight scene with him and quite a few other characters at the midpoint of the film was a highlight. He's like Russian dancing and hopping and bouncing all over the room, and in that classic Kingsman Matthew Vaughn style, it's really funny but badass at the same time. And that brings me to the action scenes of the film. That's something that the first two films were known for. They had their comedy, they had their badassery, but they also had just really well choreographed action scenes, and this movie's no different. It doesn't seem like we have quite as many as the first two films, but there are still plenty on display here. And the ones that are available to us are all really cool, and each of them is very memorable. We don't quite get anything to the level of the church shootout scene in the first film, but really, I don't know if we've gotten any scenes that were up to that level in the series up to this point. Now, the one place that the movie did slip up a bit, and I don't think it was just me, because the person that I went to see see this movie with, they said the same thing at the same exact time that I did, was who its villain is. It clearly doesn't want you to know. It keeps this main bad guy villain shrouded in shadow and mystery until the very end of the film. And because of the way the movie does this, you know that it's got to be someone that you would recognize. And the movie, early on, kind of gives it away. The movie just didn't do a very good job of keeping that a secret like it thought it did. There's a couple of shots that linger just a little bit too long on certain people in certain situations that say, oh, yeah, okay, that's what's going on there. Foreshadowing was a little bit too heavy there. That being said, I didn't really mind. The reveal of who this character actually is didn't really take anything away from the movie. Now, there are some surprises in the film that the movie has that I myself never saw coming, one in particular that are pretty shocking. I don't really want to say anything else about these surprises because I don't want to give them away, but there is at least one moment in this film where there were audible gasps throughout the theater. Me, myself, I didn't gasp, but I was kind of like, oh shit. Yeah, I'm more of an oh shit guy than a gasp guy. Sue me. Now, even though this movie takes place in a different time period with all different characters, it still has that signature Kingsman look to everything. The way that everything's shot, the camera work and all that stuff, it's very Kingsman. I can't exactly explain it, but when you watch this movie, you're like, yeah, this is a Kingsman movie. Also, the special effects are in line with the other films as well. The special effects of the Kingsman movie have always been pretty good, but there's something about them that is a little bit cartoonish at times, I've always thought. But I think it's intentional. I think they're trying to give the film a certain type of look, a personality, and this movie retains that as well. It's kind of like a heightened realism. Yeah, there are visual effects in this movie that you clearly know are CGI, but they do have a very pleasing aesthetic to them, even though they don't look real. It's not bad by any means, it's just very Kingsman. I guess if you've seen the other movies, you might know what I'm talking about here. Guys, as a fan of the original two Kingsman movies, going into this one, I was a bit hesitant because of all the changes. But I'm happy to report that I really enjoyed this movie. This is legitimately a Kingsman movie, and I had a great time with it. It's got a different, more personal, slower paced story this time around, and while I like the frantic pace of the original two films, I like this change of pace as well. The characters are all really well written and entertaining, and the performances are great across the board. It continues on the Kingsman legacy, but tells a different story and doesn't get stale. And while if you're not a fan of the Kingsman movies before going to see this movie, it's probably not going to change your mind. But if you are a fan, the Kingsman is absolutely worth a buy.
Do it! Do it!
Show me the money!
Do it!
You motherfucker!
So,
Show me the money!
do it!
I was anticipating being a bit disappointed by this movie, but man, I had a great time with it. I think I like this movie more and more as time goes on. It's only been a few hours since I saw it. It retains that Kingsman spirit while giving us a fresh new story with new characters. So if you're a fan of the Kingsman movies, or you're just looking for a really fun, entertaining action movie for the night, then check out the Kingsman, and I think you're gonna have a great time with it. So there it is, guys, my review of the Kingsman. If you enjoyed, want more content like this, hit that subscribe button and help my little channel grow. If you wanna help out the channel, check out my Patreon in the description below, become a jarhead and get some of the awesome benefits to go along with that, like these guys, and possibly check out my top tier and become a bad motherfucker like my man Greg C and Dragon Khan. If you liked what I had to say, give me a like. If not, let me know in the comments below why. And as always, stay sexy, Oxford.
Stop fucking about!
So there's not a post-credit scene to this movie, but there is a mid-credit scene. And it's okay, I guess. It's nothing like mind-blowing. It does introduce a character, and it is a character that pretty much anyone is going to recognize, but that's not even the most interesting part of it. What's really interesting is, what does this mid-credit scene mean for the future of this franchise? If we get another Kingsman movie, is it going to be in this timeline with these characters? Are we not going to get any more of the current day Kingsman movies with Taron Egerton and everybody else that's been in the movies up to this point? While I really enjoyed these characters and I'd love to see more of their adventures, I also enjoy the characters from the original two movies, and I want to see more of them as well. I mean, honestly, if they continue this series and I don't get to see the future adventures of Eggsy, I'm gonna be pissed, Matty Vaughn. Saying his name like I know him or some shit. I'm sure he's watching.